In this video, I'll go over Elon Musk's rebrand of Twitter to X, the chaos that followed, the media coverage, and in the end, lay out a few business lessons that we can all learn from the $44 billion rebrand. Sound good? Let's dive in. In 2022, the world's richest man acquired Twitter for $44 billion. His goal was to alleviate many of the restrictions on Twitter for speech and leverage the existing user base to hyper boost his lifelong goal for an everything app. He wanted to reshape Twitter into the digital town square, where people conversed, shopped, and farted around. However, in order to do this, he had to flip Twitter on its head. As Musk saw it, Twitter was bloated with unnecessary employees, bogged down by content restrictions, and built on systems that were the complete opposite of his free speech vision. So he did what Elon does best. He blew it all up. Before diving in, I write a daily newsletter focused on no BS global news. The link to that is in the description. The first and most dramatic of the changes was the rebrand from Twitter to X. Many were confused by the move, as the Twitter brand was one of the strongest in the world, estimated to be worth over $5 billion in global recognition. But Elon had a different vision. He wasn't just buying a social media platform. He was buying the foundation for his everything app. The Twitter brand, with all of its associations and limitations, had to go, even if it cost him billions. People of all types knew about Twitter. Grandmas in the UK, finance bros in Dubai, and farmers in Australia could recognize Twitter and gave a vague description of what it was. However, X, on the other hand, didn't inherit that recognition, even if it was the same product. Elon may have bought the Twitter product, but he lit on fire the brand and put himself and the company behind the 8 ball and catching up. As the rebrand was going underway, internally, there was some major restructuring going on, which is just a fancy way of saying people were getting fired. In the first few months after buying the company, Elon laid off 80% of the staff, justifying it by saying it was a crucial cost-cutting move, and the people that did leave didn't add too much value anyways. With the actual product, things were getting flipped on its head. Content restrictions were relaxed. People who were banned by the previous owners were let back on. The app essentially became the Wild West of the internet, where anything could be said, which was a stark contrast from the previous restricted nature of the app. In all of this fiasco, advertisers were getting scared. 90% of Twitter's revenue came from advertising. Advertisers don't like uncertainty. X was the poster child of uncertainty. As a result, advertisers started to pull their spend from X, citing brand risks. But here's what Elon miscalculated. In all of this restructuring, he forgot about how his main source of revenue would react. Sure, he had plans to move away from advertising dependence through subscriptions and other revenue streams. But when 90% of your income comes from advertisers, scaring them away doesn't slow your transition. It threatens your survival. X went from an advertising powerhouse to an advertising dead zone overnight. Given the nature of this turmoil, the media hopped onto this story and rode with it, documenting each move the company made and dissecting it for a mass audience. For Elon, while he was probably annoyed with this, the media coverage only emboldened him in his strategy. He was positioning X as the anti-establishment platform, where mainstream media criticism actually proved his point about biased coverage. He leveraged this narrative to his loyal audience, and that only emboldened them in their support for him and what he was trying to do with X, which was actually a great thing for him. Appealing to your top consumers and keeping them happy is something any successful business must do. However, much of the world isn't Elon Glazers. They saw the media coverage, the chaos from restructuring, and that narrative was solidified in their heads. X became synonymous with instability and controversy, a stigma that has stuck with the company to this day. There are many business conclusions that can be drawn from this. 1. The value of a brand cannot be overstated. Twitter spent 16 years building a $5.7 billion brand that Elon destroyed in months and has yet to come close to restoring that trust years later. Secondly, it is important to diversify revenue, but when 90% of your revenue comes from one source, you can't just alienate that source overnight and hope for the best. Slowly weaning off that source of revenue and supplementing that missed revenue with more stable and aligned revenue sources for your future goals is the way to go. Finally, controversy can drive engagement, but it's a double-edged sword. While Elon's drama kept X in headlines, it ultimately scared away the very advertisers the platform needed to survive. The $44 billion lesson here: build brands carefully, transition revenue streams gradually, and remember, sometimes the cost of being right isn't worth being broke.